Welcome to another episode of the Lords of Consciousness videocast. I am your host, Clint Culberson, and we are back from a summer break. We've had quite an awesome summer, gearing up and revved up to get this thing going again. In fact, we're at the Bhakti Fest in Joshua Tree, covering all the events there, and had some really amazing interviews with some really special people who are up to some incredible work in their lives, and we're excited to be putting that content out, so get ready for that. And today, to get things kicked back into full gear, we have someone on who's up to some really incredible things with his YouTube channel, and he's the man behind the Destroying the Illusion YouTube channel, Facebook page, Mr. Jordan-Sather. How are you, brother?
How's it going, my man? It's a beautiful day in the Northwest here.
Yeah, and it's an equally beautiful day here in the Southwest. So, you know, my wife is from Washington, and I know you're hanging out up there, and it's pretty much a paradisical place in the summertime. So you're living in a cool place, my man.
Key words in the summertime.
Yeah, in the summertime. Well, I think human beings might be migratory more than we think. So snowbird it as much as you can. You know, get to the desert in the wintertime, get to the mountains in the summertime, and it's a nice mix.
Exactly.
I'm so excited to have you on. Your YouTube channel is based on really exposing what's behind the curtain, if you will. You know, the Wizard of Oz. Yeah. What is behind the curtain? And you've come onto the scene in the last year with like a really fresh perspective. You know, you're kind of combining. It's not like you're reinventing the wheel, but you're bringing pieces together. And combining them and kind of, you know, dot connecting. And you have you usually have a daily video out, and I really recommend people checking them out. I mean, you have over 30,000 subscribers, and that you don't get 30,000 subscribers by mistake. So how has this journey been for you, Jordan, in terms of acquiring all this information over the last couple of years to finally coming out into the world, in a sense, with what you found?
Well, it was almost my own spiritual journey to give back to the world in a way, because my initial awakening process, per se, as most people call it, occurred 5 or 6 years ago, probably around 2011 time frame. And, you know, everybody has their own specific path that they take. Mine was one where I just went like full bore. I first started learning about natural health because I dropped out of college to work at a health food store. And then it was quickly from there into chemtrails, Rothschilds, bloodlines. And I was always interested in UFOs. So it's like it naturally progressed towards that. And then I learned about free energy and everything. I was just hungry. Yeah. I was hungry. Once I found out that, like, wow, stuff's more alive than I realized, I was like, I would need to put this stuff together. But in doing so, I went into the depressive phase, as many people go through with their awakening process. Like, oh my God, you know, I had the tape over my screen all the time. And what else? You know, there was one day where I was sitting there thinking I was about to get round up in FEMA camps. So went through that phase, went off all social media, and it was a couple of years. I was still researching, I was still learning, but I wasn't active, you know, on the interwebs. So I was doing that. And about a year ago, I kind of got to a point where I just started not giving a shit anymore, you know? And I got a little bit more active on my Facebook, and I joined some groups. I ended up writing a few articles for Justin Deschamps of the Stillness in the Storm blog. Mm-hmm. You know, that was about a year ago. I wrote a few articles for him. I wrote a couple for the Waking Times outlet as well. And then the YouTube channel started. And really, it was a culmination of me not wanting to work corporate jobs anymore. Every single corporate job I worked at, mm-hmm. even if it wasn't, let me rephrase. I've never worked for a large corporation. It was always a small business, which was cool. But I still just couldn't work for somebody else. I'm like, I need to work for myself. Mm-hmm. And then also it was, and many people are surprised when I tell them this, but it was me seeing it as a spiritual challenge for myself, as like the challenge that I needed to do, in that just speaking my word. Because I've always had not only personal, but business and familial relationships where I didn't speak my truth, didn't speak my perspective or have confidence in that. So I was like, well, I have 4 to 5 years of research in everything, you know, and putting it all together, not only natural health, but recently the secret space program stuff came out. That was blowing my mind, and like all this stuff. I researched it very well. I had a good perspective on it, and I'm like, why don't I just start a YouTube channel? And the reason I chose YouTube is because I suck at writing. I'm not a good writer. It takes me hours to, crank something out. But when I was working at that health food store, it was like my literal job to take very complex topics of health and boil it down for people, and also get them to like change their belief systems on vaccines and fluoride and GMOs and things like that.
Yep.
So it was like I had the skills from that to be able to speak very simply on these things. And it's like it was not only a spiritual lesson, but it's very cathartic too, because with these videos, I mean, it just feels good to get truths out there and to get all this shit off your brain and everything. So it was like, that's kind of why I went into it. I knew the conscious community needed that niche, somebody with constant content that has a pretty positive perspective, has a general idea. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but I have a general idea of, I can connect some dots. So I was like, why not? So I started it. And obviously that was back in January. And what are we in September? So 9-10 months later, it's done well for me. And I'm just continuing trying to build it all out and bring people together and, do what I do. So.
Yeah, and it's been quite a roller coaster for you. You've been thrust into some really interesting events. You've been able to put yourself out there in terms of, you're actually getting a stage in a sense. And when you get the stage, what do you do with it? And that's
exactly.
That's a really it's a pertinent thing. So many of us, if you had the microphone to speak to the world, what would you say? And if you only had 60 seconds even to get it out, what would it be? And
exactly.
I think someone like you who, hey, you got a 60-minute presentation at this event in Mount Shasta or at next year Contact in the Desert, or what are you going to share with people? And I'm sure for you there's like there's so many things to address, right? I mean, this is like a very multi-layered onion that we're dealing with here. And it's really difficult to like focus on, to figure out what's the top priority here, because there's a spiritual side of things. There's a geopolitical side of things. There's a physical real world side of things. I mean, just getting food out of the ground, like food and water alone is to me, maybe the number one issue, or, and there's many ways to go at this. So, and I know one of the main priorities for you is this idea of disclosure. And this is like the big term everyone's using now, and it's so multiplicitous in its definition as well. Where I met you was at Contact in the Desert, and it's basically an event that's based on this idea of disclosure. Can you can you define it according to you, and then where are we on the timeline of disclosure according to you? Because everyone's perspective is different.
Totally. And I really like the way you introduced like my channel. You basically said he just like exposes stuff, and that I think encompasses disclosure perfectly, is because you left it so general. And when I was actually filming in Gaia with George Norrie this last weekend, he was like, he didn't know where to begin with health or with space or with stuff, because I'm so into all of it. And I think when it comes to disclosure, every single topic is part of it, not just UFOs. It often, is touted by just the UFO community as like UFO disclosure, free energy, and yada yada. But what about the health aspect of it, the cancer cures? What about, the ritualistic aspect of it that the elite are into, that nasty stuff? What about, it all factors in. So disclosure to me is not just one topic, but it's the public acknowledgement of all the truths and information and knowledge that have been basically hidden from the mass public by a certain group of individuals that don't have our best interests in mind, that have their specific own service to self, often negatively oriented from our perspective, agenda. So that to me is disclosure. It's just the mass release of all of this stuff. But, in answering the question of where are we at, I think that question, rather than being answered on a collective level, should be answered individually. Where is each of our understandings of disclosure at? That's a more important question, because once you choose that path of truth, say once you choose, okay, I want to learn about a cancer cure, you'll find it. You'll find it, and boom, that's been disclosed to yourself. I've can go find cancer cures on the shelves and make them, and find books that give you them. So do we need to wait for mass disclosure for that? No. I mean, we can all go learn ourselves about the Gerson therapy, or find someone that has a Rife machine or frequency generator, something that affects. So it's like, has disclosure happened? No. But to me, like you said, in your question, everybody's got their own perspective on it. Well, their own perspective of disclosure is based upon the truths they've only invited themselves to see. So it's like, disclosure to me has already happened, dude. I've seen UFOs in the sky.
Yeah.
I've seen cancer cured. I've seen, shit happen, crazy stuff happen. So for other people, it might not have occurred yet because they just haven't opened themselves up to that. So
yeah, and I suppose then let's speak from a collective aspect. Like what does it even look like when the collective has embraced a full-on disclosure in a sense? I mean, if you ask me, that probably means the system that's in place is somehow in a wrecking, in a pile of garbage. It looks like the wreckage of the Twin Towers, if you ask me. And I mean, that might be the only way until we finally see it all, right? I mean, how does it look to you?
Yeah, I mean, on a collective level, we're getting a lot faster. It's getting there. Obviously, there's a long way to go. I can only draw from my own experience in that when I was working at that health food store 5 years ago, when I first started, I would bring up vaccines, and it was a very hot, touchy topic, even in this kind of hippy dippy health food store, even back then. But now, 5 years along, in 2017 now, as opposed to 2012, the topic of vaccines, a lot more people are getting it. And they're getting that. A lot more people are getting, especially lately, the like geo-engineering thing. I was just in a store the other day and people were bringing it up. These storms seem like they're man-made or manipulated somehow. So it's like, it's getting exponentially quick, faster and faster, right? But of course, there's, like you said, it's layers of an onion. So it's these things are getting disclosed. Great. Now there's, maybe fringier topics or deeper topics behind that, like the UFO topic that'll come. So it's like, the layers are definitely getting peeled. They're getting peeled quicker, but we have much more of a way to go. And in speculating on how it'll be in the future, it's like, dude, we can't. We all just have no idea.
Yeah. Beyond the event horizon is how I like to say it. That's what the true potential of humanity is. I don't really think any motherfucker on this planet has any idea. So we can only speculate. I have a very distinct intuition that it's something mega beautiful, beyond beauty. So I'm going to keep walking towards it.
Exactly. And although I do think it's getting like, we're so close, because you see all the soft disclosure that's been in the mainstream media, like all the stuff they're prepping our minds for. So it's like, we're at the cusp. But the only thing I think that we can be assured of is that it's going to be tumultuous for a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to be in shock by it. So I honestly think the main mindset we can have right now in ushering it in quicker is by understanding forgiveness and by refraining from that "I told you so" attitude, right? Because I think if we all like you and I and us who are more so awakened, if we're sitting here just waiting to say "I told you so," that's probably why disclosure hasn't come yet, because we're not mature enough to compassionately handle it. So we got to sit in a space here of thinking, I don't want to say "I told you so." I want to actually like comfort and console these people when their egos are absolutely shattered by disclosure happening.
Yeah, amen. And you bring up the idea of ego, and even within the just take the leaders in terms of, the speakers at these events, the people who are writing these books, these authors who are part of this disclosure and who've been beating the drum for years and years. And I can't even imagine having like an awareness back in 1985 and then have to sit through the next fucking 30 years of all the craziness. I mean, Syria alone right now literally kills me. I mean, I can't even watch it without just like dying inside of just how grotesque the whole thing is, right? So imagine having this awareness back in the Vietnam War and watching the whole thing, So I can't even imagine. And you talk about disclosure of people, even people within the system who've known, let's say CIA agents like Robert-Steele, who maybe were like in it. Kevin Shipp, who's been putting out these videos that are so incredible, and I know you've been sharing his presentation as well. Even if you knew like what was going on, this is a cruise ship trying to turn around. Like, it's not like you even coming out and telling the world really is going to do anything, because the way they can just squash you. So it's like something that's had to have been like a 30-year plan. It's no different than the Illuminati is planning 9/11 for 30 years. Well, guess what? The good guys are going to have to make their plans, and it's going to have to be something that's very patient and happens at the right time when the collective is ready for it. Bam, here we go. Pedogate. I mean, pedophilia has been going on for a long time. Why did it come out now? Probably because this is the only time we've ever been able to really even barely embrace it. I mean, it's already been kind of squashed and looked at as that was just some bullshit, the Pizzagate thing. But, but it's now in the collective consciousness, because I think that we're finally ready for it.
Yeah. You bring up a lot of different awesome points there that I want to touch on. Well, first, you said, I can't imagine. Same thing with me. I think about this all the time. I can't imagine, like you said, waking up in like 1980, 85 and dealing with this for 30 years. And it's like some of these
I salute you guys, man.
Yeah, I salute all of you. And, that's probably, I'm not going to say probably, that is the main reason why it's such a passionate hotbed topic that a lot of older people are very jaded with. They are also have many of them have their egos that they're ingrained into. So it's like, it's not that, like my YouTube channel, the success of, Lords of Consciousness, it's like all these old people are waiting for young people to come along because they want the pressure off of them. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with this crap anymore. So it's like when the young people come out and just start saying all this shit and have this energy and this enthusiasm, these old people, elderly, seasoned, we'll call them seasoned veterans, it's like a weight off their back.
Well, let me ask you this: like, you're a young guy. I'm a young guy too. I'm in my 30s. I believe you're in your 20s. But to whom much is given, much is required. But what do you think? Where do you think the young people and the young generation right now that are part of this disclosure movement? Where do you think the real wisdom is in how to best utilize the older generation in a sense? Because we really need to humble ourselves, because there's a lot of shit that's going on right now it's been done before. It's already happened. This has been a cycle that's become over and over and over again. So we do have something. The older generation has something that we really need to shut up and listen to.
Yeah, totally. And it's cool you said that. The older generation has something we need to shut up and listen to. And like you were saying, there's a lot of people that have been in these agencies that know shit and they want to come out. And we need to hear them. We need to listen to these people with their stories. That's why, dude, I interview and I try to talk. Dude, most of my friends are over the age of, I'm saying probably the same with you. Most of our people we talk to are over the age of like 45 or 50.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I want to hear all your stories, man. But at the same time,
my best friend's a Vietnam War vet. So,
yeah, totally. And I love talking to, like shooting the shit with Rob-Steele or talking to all these people at these events and stuff. Like, they're just like, it's listening to good friend stories. But at the same time, you asked, what can the younger generation do to help the old? And on one hand, there's many people whose stories we do need to listen to. But at the same time, in the older generation, there's a lot of people's stories that we need to call out for being misleading or wrong, whether that's intentionally wrong or accidentally wrong. It doesn't matter. It's just that makes it come at it from a different angle. But just call it out and help the older generation embrace change, because the younger generation is very adaptive with the internet and with the way things are changing exponentially. And, the younger generation is very good at changing. They're very good at seeing alternatives,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, the younger generation is the most brainwashed. We have the most vaccines, the most EMF, the
Mm-hmm.
most shit coming at us. So it's like when that younger generation does find out the truth, what I find is that they're some of the most catalyzed and some of the most like pissed off. And because the younger generation is so adaptive and so able to change, then they can utilize the internet like you and I are
Mm-hmm.
and really make waves. So it's like the younger generation needs to break out of that deep mind control and then just go for it. And then the older generation will just come along because I think millennials outnumber the older generations now, right?
You
I
know,
think it is
I
now. I think we're the largest or something
wow,
like
I didn't
that. So,
realize. I didn't realize.
yeah. So, I mean,
Well, it's like
yeah.
you and me talked about. It takes an army, you know, and it's not just going to
Yeah,
be young people. It's not just going to be old people. I mean, if you this
everybody.
is a village, man. Find your village, and I'll bet if you really find your village, I'll bet there's a quite a diverse mix of a demographic. If all the people in your life are the same age as you, same demographic as you, I'd like to say you're probably limiting your life in general, and you
You're
should
probably
probably
pretty
seek
boring.
out some diversity of age, of gender, of race, of just perspective, fucking
Mhm.
religion, politics, whatever, man. I mean, in this, talk about like the importance, Jordan, of bridge building right now, because man, we're like headed towards some sort of civil war in our country, in the United States, because it's so fractured over these like two, like I would say like two ideologies. Of course, there's many, but there's kind of like this fracturing of kind of like this Antifa movement versus, you know, the racist conservatives. You know, those are the two ugly sides of it. But what are you seeing with this, and how important is bridge building in terms of, you know, moving forward into the new age?
I think the word unity and oneness, it to me, how do I want to go about this? This could be extremely deep. So, the idea of unity is so much more than just us coming together. I think it's the literal fabric upon which physics and
Mm-hmm.
consciousness and everything is built upon, you know? And this idea of, you know, polarity and dividing and conquering, that's a primary way that the elites take us away from that oneness, take us away from that unity. And you know that unity is consciousness. It's all understanding that we're part of this same fabric, we're part of this exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're each individual manifestations of that, you know, with different hair colors, different eye colors, and whatnot, but we each,
Scientifically proven too.
yeah, but we each come from that same source. And you know, it's about accessing back into it. So not only through the Antifa, the paid organizations, the left right paradigm, even through science, especially through science, through religion. Every single control system construct is designed to take our minds and our bodies away from that unity. So anything that's preaching division, you know, I shy away from. I just don't resonate with any guru in the UFO community or the truth telling community or even the health realm. You know, if they are causing some kind of like high school drama or, you know, preaching some
Mm-hmm.
ideology that is divisive, I just don't usually follow it. And I think a lot can be told by the people who are calling, who don't, you know, who try to build bridges, like you could say, who try to build bridges. You know, I was just watching a YouTube video of a well-known truther, you could say, and it was basically just like a hour-long hit piece on another truther. So I was like, this is pointless, man, and
Mm-hmm.
this is exactly why we're not going anywhere collectively, is
Mm-hmm.
because people are still caught up with petty shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they each just like worried about themselves, the truths they wanted to speak, not the truths other people are speaking, you know, eventually all these perspectives would kind of mold together and we'll all figure it out together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's vital, you know, and I think that's the stage that we're at right now. If we're going to avoid some civil war here in the United States, it's like really trying to
yeah.
like show everyone we're literally on the same team here, and that's why your channel is so vital, because It's like you're looking at the wrong enemy here. And hell, I know on even a deeper spiritual level, the Illuminati is of all of us as well. But right now, there is an element of defining our boundaries as a collective people. Those who are living in the heart space and want to, have a better world, we no longer accept what this group of people is trying to do to us. And in fact, we love them so much that we won't allow them to do it anymore. That's kind of that, victim finally standing up for itself. And you can kind of see it happening on a collective level, but it's just, damn, it takes a long time. It's like watching your friend who's in an abusive relationship for a long ass time slowly wake up to getting out of it,
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And, yeah, it's fascinating. I wanted to kind of switch gears on this. Yesterday you had on you posted your interview with the hashtag Unrig crew. Robert-Steele, Cynthia-Mckinney, can you kind of just explain for anyone out there, just give me the general overview of what they're about and why this movement's so important to stand behind? Because those are two really important characters in this whole, it's not about guruism, and I know none of them give a shit about praise, and they just want to live in peace and harmony with their families just like us. But can you kind of give us the rundown?
Yeah, Robert David Steele, the ex-CIA spy, former Marine intelligence officer. Cynthia-Mckinney, Dr. Cynthia-Mckinney, she was the first Black woman elected to Congress from Georgia, served 6 terms. So I really like what they're doing with their Unrig campaign. So they reached out to me, and I was more than happy to do an interview with them and, put their hashtag Unrig name out there, because that's exactly what they're going for is they're trying to create some unity and get people to come together on both sides of the aisle, on the Democratic left side and the Republican right side. Their Unrig campaign moves past that 2-party paradigm that's been used to control us and is really bridging past a lot of the racism too. Cynthia-Mckinney had to deal with a lot of racism when she was in Georgia, being the first Black, especially woman, elected there, and she was literally trying to get votes from KKK members, and so she's like been in the trenches with that.
Yeah.
So
talk about a bridge builder, right?
Talk about a bridge builder, and man, like one of the first videos I saw during my awakening process was that video of her grilling Donald Rumsfeld about the $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon the day before 9/11. So it's like I'd always looked up to her. And Robert David Steele, he's a really cool dude. He's always been really good to me. So their campaign is great.
Yeah, and it's this idea of election reform. I mean, again, there's so many, we can all have our opinion on where do we put our priorities on.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty incredible what they're doing, and man, they're giving it all they can, man. And it's so hard to run these movements when you're not funded, right? Look at the whole world. Most of the issues in the world is usually an issue of underfunding, just kind of a prioritization. I mean, when you consider we're putting more than half of the money into this whole war game, foreign policy built on the biggest lie ever told. And that's where half the fucking world resources are going, or at least our national resources here in the United States. And meanwhile, we're left fighting over healthcare when it could be easily solved if we would just go, oh my gosh, we're being robbed of half of everything, and yet we're sitting here fighting over the scraps.
I know. And then everybody's like, yeah, we want universal healthcare. We're the only country that doesn't have it. Little do they realize they're like begging for the shittiest healthcare system that's just going to pump them full of drugs.
Yep.
And then, it's so many broken systems that people don't realize that they can't fix. You can't fix these systems. They were designed not to be. So as Buckminster Fuller said, we've got to not even worry about this system over here. We got to focus on ahead. We got to focus on building a new one. So, and like you said, it's going to require an army. So we've got people focusing on election reform right now. Great. I'll support those people. We've got people focused on getting holistic doctors safe and getting health information out there, like, Dr. McCullough, Sarah G from Green Med Info, Erin Elizabeth, which is Dr. McCullough's wife. Great. So I'm going to, report on their stuff. Then we've got people coming out with the secret space program, free energy stuff. Great. So, like you said, everybody has their niche. I'm just trying to, with Destroying the Illusion, be a place where people can get ideas about all of it and then just offer them avenues to go research more into whatever interests them, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I
So
like that. Yeah, you give a great an array. You know, you you deep dive just enough to say, hey, now it's your turn to do your own
yeah,
damn research, and everything that you share requires countless hours of your own research. Don't take anyone's word for it. You know,
yeah,
even hey, the guy I'm wearing, Terrence McKenna, right here, always said, even the smartest among us doesn't know shit. So just
hmm
your own perspective is the most important thing. Your own personal experience is what matters most. I wanted to let's go into the swamp. I don't want to focus too much attention onto this, but let's talk about it. Steve-Bannon just gave an incredible interview on 60 Minutes. Incredible to the extent of revealing. You know, like we've been wondering what the heck's going on behind closed doors, and Steve
What did
Bannon.
he? You could enlighten me a little more on that. Tell me a little
Well,
more about it.
I only share this. Basically, I wanted to bring up that interview because it basically is talking. He basically reveals and says outright, you know, because he just recently left, he resigned, and said that Trump is surrounded by the establishment, and somehow that's happened. Now, I guess that was my prelude. You don't have to know too much about the interview, but Trump is obviously following like a right-wing agenda in terms of domestic policy and things like that. But who, according to you, you've been watching him for 9 months. Where do you stand with him? Is he fighting against the cabal, or is he?
Oh,
Who is
cool.
he answering to? And
Cool. You went
do
there.
we
See,
have any hope?
a lot of people like won't touch politics because it's so touchy. But dude, as long as you admit like I don't have the answers, it's just my
Hell
opinion.
yeah, man.
Then cool. Let's all go to politics, right?
Okay.
So Trump, I am one that's probably the most anti-label you could ever be.
Right.
Like I don't like to ever call somebody a adjective. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can be bitchy, you can be assholish, but you're not
Mm-hmm.
a bitch. You're not a asshole. I
Right.
think, so I don't label myself a conservative, a Democrat. I have conservative tendencies, lately a lot more than I have had in the past
Me
because
too.
of Donald Trump. And when Donald Trump does good things, fantastic, right? He got us out the Paris Accords. He wanted to renegotiate NAFTA and all these things. He signed his human trafficking executive order. And so I'm seeing a lot of good come from him. But again, like you said, he seems to be surrounded by this establishment. And like how many months into his presidency now, 9, 10, it's like, are these wheels just turning, turning, turning? Is he somebody that's, fighting this deep state? And we do know that the deep state, they infiltrate shit more than any of us could even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, if it does take some time to clear those weeds out, I do understand. But at the same time, we need some tangible change. For 10 months, a year now, I'll say a year now, we've known, I wouldn't say known, we have all the evidence in the world to point towards John Podesta being, not just him, but a huge amount of people being sickos, doing highly unlawful illegal things. So where's the change? There's people at lives at stake. There's not only thousands but millions of people's lives at stake because we have these manufactured weather wars. And in my opinion, probably half of these fires set off in the West were deliberate, probably by this satanic cult. So there's a planet to save here, and we need this change to come quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, yeah, why is it taking so long? I probably would say that my faith in Donald Trump is like dwindling, but at the same time, let's be intuitive with it. Let's entertain all possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe Trump is controlled opposition. Maybe he's in there because he wants to. The deep state wanted to, could you say, like subdue the truthers, give them some false hope.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's part of an alliance that is fighting as hard as they can a larger enemy than they ever imagined. That's a possibility. That maybe there's just a bunch of stuff we don't see going on behind the scenes that's like preparing for that move. I hope so. I'm having faith in that, and I'm trying to be as positive as I can, but we got to be real here. Lastly, I kind of thought of this one this morning. Maybe he's just a lame duck president. Maybe he's in there just to hold over as long as they can. And this kind of goes in with the disclosure thing, but maybe he's just waiting waiting until he doesn't even have to be a president anymore, which could happen, might happen soon.
Right.
I don't know. There's just so many things that you can
Yeah, and
spec on.
there's like a balance between, you know, focusing our efforts on like a grassroots movement. You know, we've been waiting for some guy at the top to fix the problem for a long time, and waiting and disappointment. It's almost like, God, in the meantime, we could have already been focusing our efforts on like a community program that's freeing us from this system, right? Whatever that be. There's so many different versions of this. But at the same time, when you really look at what the world is faced with, really the only way we're going to be able to fix this in a quick enough manner is to free the resources of this planet and direct them towards the actual solutions. And of course, right now it's still being directed towards this old paradigm of, all the bullshit. So it's like, of course, man, wouldn't it be so awesome if we had a guy at the top who had like buying power to actually say, okay, we're going to steer the ship this way, instead of, because we can turn back this environmental degradation far quicker with the funds of the world than we can even at a nonprofit grassroots level. Like, hey, we're raising money to plant trees. That's cool and it's awesome and amazing, and we even cover people that do that. But I had on a guy who's literally trying to help save the redwood forest by cloning trees from the best trees and planting them in Southern Oregon. And I asked him, like, how much could you do if you actually had the funding? And he's like, well, his eyes lit up, and it just kind of like, shit, we could, this could be humongo. We could change the economy in a sense.
Yeah.
So how do we focus on that balance between like paying attention to what's going on in the system, changing it within the system, and then also just getting busy fixing it on our own?
Maybe, as impatient as we all are for that mass disclosure, maybe that's why it needed to drag out, because we became so passive and, victimized as a society. We became victimized and then passive from it, that Trump came in and is holding out, or whatever's going on is holding out because it's waiting for us to get on our ass and start making some change. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, on a mass level, we absolutely do need some resources freed up, whether it is a big stash of gold coming back to humanity, or prosperity funds, or some Jassara global collateral reset account thing, whatever you want to call it. I think that is on its way, but I think maybe one reason it has held out is to teach us more of a spiritual lesson, and to stop playing victim, expecting to be saved, and actually start making some change. And then once we make enough change, that money will come to us, and then boom, we'll be able to fund that guy and fund people with free energy devices and all that jazz. So, I think as long as we focus on learning our spiritual lessons right now, on getting the courage to speak out and actually put forth the effort to make change, just like you're doing with your webcast and I'm doing with my YouTube, that just speeds up the prosperity funds coming to us.
You talked about this paradigm of like looking for an external savior. Can you kind of talk about really the trap that can be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's I think when we all go through our awakening experience, then we come to the realization that ETs are real, or whatever the case is. Not even that. I mean, it's always been kind of ingrained in human consciousness, especially through religions, in wanting to be saved, in feeling. In religions, usually it's through guilt. It's really guilt ridden, and then they want to make you feel like you're a shitty human, so you have to be saved by Christ or Allah or whatever it is. In the spiritual movement, it's usually aliens. People want aliens to come down and save them, or some president to come in and say things. But, we can't stay victims as a society and expect to be saved by whatever it is, by money coming into your account, or some president, or aliens, or, a religious figure. So here's I'll finish this up quickly. Here's the best way I can put it here. I'm a father. I have a 5-year-old, almost 5. When the way that a parent helps their child grow is that they don't do everything for them. You want your child to learn how to tie his own shoes. You want your child to learn how to put the dishes in the sink and clean up after himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to be saved by anything as a collective society, gold, president, aliens, Jesus, we're not going to be children who grow. We're not going to learn on our own. And, I think that's just that's just an as above, so below
Mm-hmm.
manifestation of that concept right there. You want your child to learn his own stuff, overcome his own issues, and that's what society has to do right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that balance of even like I think a father's role especially is that preparation for independence. You gotta I'm here to teach you how to hunt for yourself, kiddo.
exactly.
But then there is that element of the mother, and the mother is always ever giving. From the beginning, the mother's teat, giving the milk is that baby. It can't do it on its own, and there is always that element of something that's ever giving. And I think that's we have that. This earth is so giving to us. We bitch and moan about all the shit we have going on in the world, and yet every day we waking up with food to eat, and if you choose it right, really good food to eat. If you can figure out how to clean your water, then really good water. We have great shelter. We're the whole deal, and we're being given all the time. All these opportunities to meet. You and me meeting, or all the people that we're connecting with, and it's so giving at the same time. That's even beyond even what you're doing, but it's kind of that balance of looking within, and it's all acting as if it all depends on you in some ways, but then also realizing there's an element of this that's totally out of your control, and just letting go to the universal flow.
And a lot of people are like, they're bitching about the old systems, and the old systems suck. They're not designed to help us as humans, but when you really understand your own infinite potential and that the universe has your back as long as you follow your bliss, shouldn't we be looking at this old system as like a challenge? Let's have the confidence. Let's actually be empowered. Let's take a look at this system and be like, oh, okay, you want me to be a corporate wage slave? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use this fiat system. I'm going to use marketing and business and Amazon and Google and YouTube and Facebook and these banks. I'm going to use that all against themselves, right? What kind of challenge is that? So it's like fun to sit here and be like, okay, I'm going to make it while sharing truth, or I'm going to do these things and keep growing while they're trying to hold me back, and it almost becomes like fun in a way.
Yep.
So it's like,
do you ever see the world as if this is some sort of big video game, your own life's video game, like your movie, my movie, they're all kind of connecting, and then we're all kind of sort of like, I don't know, like you got to face the boss at level 2, at the end of level 2, and that's figuring out that Google's a motherfucker. Okay, well, level 3, I
think of it as a big episode of Dragon Ball Z, and I'm like some Super Saiyan that's trying to like access his Super Saiyan powers, and
exactly.
But totally, man, it's definitely some kind of game, lesson, learning ground, playground. I don't know.
Yeah, so, learning ground. I like that. I wanted to get into the topic of geo-engineering because it's, we've just like everything. If you wait long enough, the modern, the current events will just give it right to you. You can see, like when you watch David Icke talk about problem, reaction, solution. Well, once you learn that, and then you just wait tomorrow for the news, you can go, oh, now you can see the patterns, right? And then geo-engineering, same thing. Like a guy like Dane Wigington, who's putting out incredible information with his geoengineering.org, I think it is. Can you explain to people why they should consider geoengineering as a possibility, and what facts are really actually backing this? Because a lot of people think it's like absolutely ludicrous, like you're a wacko for even bringing it up.
Totally. Dane Wigington of the geoengineeringwatch.org.
Watch.org. Thank you.
Watch.org, and awesome website there. He does a lot of good stuff. This guy used to work for a massive solar panel company, Bechtel. So he would actually install solar. It was like the largest installer of solar panels in Northern California. And he started wondering why the sun was always blocked out by these trails. So that was literally his job, is to get as much, photons on these panels as possible. So, and he started doing research into it, and he found so much evidence, ridiculous amount of evidence. There's documents from NOAA dating back to the 60s, and the Air Force and NASA. It's ridiculous how much evidence there is for weather modification. Not only the strengthening of weather systems of actually heating the ionosphere and making, making storms stronger, but also in spraying. So all the chemtrails that go in the atmosphere, it all those particulates of aluminum and other metals that they eject, it actually creates more, it's called condensation nuclei for the water to fall upon. So that's why these storms are getting so big. One of the reasons, there's other reasons that aren't modification, like human consciousness even and solar weather. But one of the reasons these storms are getting so big is because of all this chemtrail residue that's leaving more shit in the atmosphere so that the water can attach to, and then they heat the ionosphere and make the water drop where they want it to. So they can manufacture droughts that we're seeing in California and then alter other weather patterns that we're seeing in the Southeast right now with the hurricanes. And yeah, if you don't believe there's no evidence for it, just go to Geoengineering Watch or, watch, there's a couple documentaries. I believe these were also put out by Dane Wigington, but why in the world are they spraying and what in the world are they spraying? It's there, there's more than enough evidence for it. It's just the reason that people don't want to believe it is because it's literally a spiritual attack on humanity. And it's just too, they go into cognitive dissonance and they just, it's fear. It's fear that shuts down their rational thinking brain. But it's very real. It's being done. And we need to understand it, expose it.
Do you think then that, people might say like, well, what motivation would anyone have to create a large hurricane and direct it at a certain part of, of the world? How would you answer that?
Totally. That gets into a giant, essentially the underlying foundations of what's going on here, in that what many people need to understand, and this is going to shock a lot of people, and they will need consoling when this truth drops at the mainstream level, is that the powers that be in control of this planet literally believe themselves to be of a different race or a different species than common man here. That's why they always keep within their bloodlines. That's why they do what they do to humanity in the form of weather engineering and food engineering and the trafficking and the manufactured wars and all that shit, is because they believe humans to be this slave race to them. They serve their god, that is Lucifer. Lucifer is literally their god. And, they work with these, in my opinion, they work with these negative extraterrestrial entities to control this race planet that they have, this slave race planet that they've created. So, when you ask the question, what motivation would some people have? Well, there's 0.0001% of the population that are sociopaths to the core and, believe their cult to be some kind of like fallen angel or like biblical reincarnation of some shit. So that's the reality here. And once we understand that at the collective level, we can get rid of that little group of people that's harbored so much money, power, and resources and bring it back to us.
This all kind of correlates with the global warming topic, we'll just say. And there is an agenda with the global warming topic. And we have these looming carbon credits, this solution that they've created from the United Nations level. And there is an element that you could say like maybe they're motivated to create some of these storms to push forward this agenda that, hey, we're all, this is escalating quick. We got to do it. We got to do these things right away or we're all going to die. But then there is data that really does support, that there is changes going on this planet, and maybe there's another side of it that says it's coming more from like a galactic thing, galactic weather. Solar weather is really the biggest contributing factor to this. Either way, it is something, I guess on some level, this is happening either way. And it's kind of like the idea of cleaning up the planet. I don't think anyone can disagree that, hey, man, we got to clean up our act here, like right away. Sooner than later, we got to fix this mess, whether you believe global warming is a real thing or not. Hopefully we can all come to unity on that. So, and in some ways, that agenda doesn't really even matter. But why do you think the global warming, why did you think that even Trump getting out of the Paris Accord was a good thing? What is behind that agenda?
Totally, and that's definitely a multifold question. I'll do my best to answer it in each part. Like you said, things are definitely changing. That's why climate change is a better term than global warming, and there's a lot of cold records being broken as well. But that change isn't just occurring on this planet, it's occurring in our solar system, and like you said, galactically. The magnetics of the sun are going crazy. Every single planet in our solar system is having crazy stuff happen to it. And what's going on is our solar system is moving into a more energetic region of space, essentially. So things are changing. And so the climate is changing. But where global warming fits in that whole propaganda scheme, it's definitely a propaganda scheme by the powers that be, is that on one end, it is another guilt trip. It's another guilt trip. That's why they always call it man-made global warming or man-made climate change. They love to throw those words man-made in there to make you feel like shit. And, then you bring the geoengineering into the picture. Well, if they can manufacture these storms to be stronger and go, there's proof, whenever they do their plans, there's usually multiple reasoning, some reasoning being, it'll just all be convenient for different ways. So we have these geoengineered storms. They can say, global warming is real. Here's evidence of it. They can cause more fear, more disaster and destruction, which is what they want. They want a traumatized populace to rule over, and then they can try to get them in their FEMA camps and all this stuff when they get out of their cities. And then, like you said, the carbon taxes. So there's the globalized implementation of carbon taxes if we were to accept this man-made global warming shtick. When, I'm not a climatologist and all that jazz, but when it comes to carbon dioxide, I do scratch my head. Why does a volcano erupting, which spouts thousands of more times with carbon dioxide than humans have ever put out, yet we're not trying to cap volcanoes and all that stuff? That's never a discussion. It's always human, man-made. What do we do? So there's that in the picture. But I really also like what you said. There's no doubt we have to clean up our Earth here. We've polluted the shit out of it. And that's often a propagandized talking point that's used against climate change deniers or man-made global warming deniers, and that you don't want to clean up this planet. No. I never said that. What I said was we're not the ones that cause global warming. It doesn't mean we shouldn't clean up the place here, And lastly, I'm kind of going everywhere with this one, but
multifaceted there.
Multifaceted. But the last point I want to make in that another convenient thing about this global warming propaganda is that when they do it, it's a real feel-good topic because they bring like renewable energies into the picture. It really makes you feel good when you're, combating man-made global warming by believing their renewable energy propaganda. But when they talk renewable energies, it's always the really inefficient, expensive, and, in my opinion, pointless ones. It's like, wind and geothermal and these like big inefficient solar panels over here. They always leave out the free energy devices that we've had for decades that could completely liberate our whole society on its need for fossil fuel. So it's like their propaganda, man-made global warming propaganda, like I said, multifold, makes you feel like shit, makes them, it acts as a reason for them to do their weather modification. We need to modify the weather because we're changing, the Earth's atmosphere. And it's a real easy way to leave out the more suppressed energy technologies in favor of the renewable energy technologies that still bank them a lot of money because it takes a lot of resources to mine the metals for the wind turbines and solar panels. They still have, industry that needs to make them. It's really, really inefficient. And we have these, freaking coils that are this big that could tap watts and watts of energy. So it's, that's what I have to say about climate change.
Yeah, and it's like the rabbit hole goes deep because when you're talking about these free energy machines, then you're talking about the whole entire paradigm shifting, and they're not ready for that. That's why they're willing to support a green movement, which is great. I mean, we'll take it on many levels, but again, it's this economy of materialism. Extracting ridiculous amounts of resources to get something that keeps a fake economy up, right? Like most of the jobs out there are just the most meaningless, pointless bullshit. We're just creating widgets and selling them to each other. And that's what we call, yeah, man, that's great. We got to save these industries. And when it's like, there's another solution that literally could create enough energy to, we could put something the size of my house that could literally power my town. Wait, what? You could do that?
It's funny. Everybody's like, yeah, we need more jobs in our economy. I'm like, no, we need less jobs. We need to bring out all the stuff that makes jobs obsolete.
Yep.
And let me, focus on painting and playing soccer my whole life. So, and then when that happens, imagine how much stuff will flourish, because that's countless amounts, millions of man hours freed up for people to actually follow their dreams and visions with. And it's like, yeah, like you said, the green movement is cool, but do you want the real truth, or do you want to just live a little less of a lie, but still a big lie, right?
So I know. Like, the onion effect, dude. I mean, I want the best solution possible. I mean, it's just absolutely asinine to have anything other than, if it's out there, we should live in a world that embraces that. Of course, that's all ideology at this moment, and really we live in a world that's coming from a really rough history of thousands of years of control. So
our science books are going to have to be rewritten from the core, and that's what I'm like trying my hardest to do videos about, and also wrap my brain around at the same time. I mean, that's why it's so cool doing these videos. I teach and I learn simultaneously, and I'm trying to learn like the foundations of science, like what theories and concepts can we do to unify everything and understand anti-gravity, electrogravitics, the electric universe theory, sacred geometry, like teleportation, dematerialization, all this stuff. So yeah,
it's funny because I've been doing the same thing with history. Like I've been really diving deep. It's always been my favorite topic. And
how far back do you go with it?
Well, I try to like go. I mean, I go back to ancient civilizations, of course, but I suppose my real strong suit is more even within the last 100 years, I'd say.
Okay,
that's really funny. Even understanding World War II and.
I believe Atlantis and civilizations like that too have existed, but I don't really know all that much about it, and I kind of have like a general idea of how we might have got here from watching a couple lectures. But it's like I stick my history relearning to like World War II to now. Yep. That's in my opinion the like most crucial part.
Yeah, I mean, Terence McKenna always said we're going through an archaic revival, and we need to like literally trace our steps back to when we last had it right. But if you're going to trace yourself back, you got to really go through each situation and start like understanding, exactly, how this all happened. And James Perloff, we've had him on, and he's an amazing historian himself. He doesn't call himself an historian, but his work on like the Council on Foreign Relations and how the connections between every one of the presidents with that group of people going all the way back to World War II, and realizing that every single war is a bunch of bullshit, and it's all the history all the history is written by the victors. And so eventually when we finally get this disclosure, it's going to have to be rewriting the history books to incorporate also the story of the losers, and really getting a full-on picture, and dare I even say, really even addressing some of the most villainous groups of people in the history of the world, and realizing that, hey man, maybe their history isn't exactly what we thought it was. And World War II is one of those, and that's a dangerous, we don't need to go any, World War II is a very dangerous topic with that, because people aren't ready for everything. But I think there's part of our history that we're going to go, holy shit, they really lied to us. Like that wasn't even, when we villainize a guy like Adolf Hitler, but don't we give Joseph Stalin a free pass? And you go, wait a minute, what's behind that? Christopher Columbus?
I've heard the theories on like, oh, maybe Hitler was a good guy or something to that effect, Maybe. Of course, I entertain all possibilities, but I'm more so along the lines of, he was probably, he had his own agendas. I think there was probably multiple factions within Germany that had multiple agendas at the time. It's never black and white. Just like you said, we can't let Stalin off the loose, off the line there. But I was going to make a point really quick there, and then I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, man.
Let me try to bring it back. No, it's cool. It's not your fault. What was I going to say?
Rewriting history.
Right before that, what were we talking about? If it doesn't come back to me, we're just going to keep going. I do this all the time.
Me too. Hey, that happens.
Oh, you said Terence McKenna. That's what reminded me of it. So You said Terrence McKenna said we have to go back to the last time we got it right. Is that what you said?
More or less. I mean, he said it obviously way better
Something
than I
along those
saying
lines.
it.
I like Terrence McKenna a lot. I don't follow him. I haven't delved too deep into it, but it's interesting, and it's a funny thought because I agree with that. We have to go back to the last time we had it right, which that would be a fun discussion to have when the last time we actually had it right. But on the other hand, do you ever follow Dr. Joseph Campbell's work?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, The Hero's Journey, Dr. Carl Jung and whatnot. Man. Dr. Joseph Campbell, he said that the problem right now is that all of our old myths are used up. And we're at a point in time where, as a society, we actually have to create new myths. So maybe, to maybe rephrase Terrence McKenna's point, maybe we don't have to go back to a time that we got it right. Maybe we've never really had it right. Maybe we're at a point in time now where we can get it right, and we have to actually create that and stop, like we were been talking about, get out of that victim mindset, get our shit together, yada yada, and then like the opportunity is now. So that's one way to put it.
It seems like a two-pronged approach, like, of course, I mean, I look within my own life, my own personal journey, my own hero's journey has also been reflecting back to, hey man, when I was a kid, that was some real pure, raw me energy. Like, that's who I was, right? And then you go through the fucking factory and you get all chiseled away and the whole deal. And then part of that journey is like, hey man, get your child self back. Now, does that mean that you just stay within the child self? No, I mean, you're also an older person now with a mind that's even more expansive. Like, you now have the potential to be something far beyond even what your child self was. But I think it is essential in some ways to kind of like reconnect with that pure raw source of energy when a baby comes into this world. I mean, in many ways, they're the most enlightened people on the earth because they haven't been programmed yet. And so it's kind of like going back to that deprogrammed position, at least as far back as you can. I mean, some people are literally programmed from day one. We all are. But it's this combination.
It's simple fear. And then as we grow and develop our ego out of birth, the ego isn't inherently a bad thing. You need your ego. That's what helps you differentiate this existence here. But that ego then is succumbed by fear. And that's when it starts, we start getting more service to self than service to other. And it's about washing your ego of that fear. And that's what it's about. Like, going back to our childhood, it's like, I don't have any fear. My ego doesn't have fear. So I don't feel the need to be better than anybody or compare myself, or, I can dance and be joyous and not repress or depress anything because I'm not scared. So that's what's absolutely crucial to go back to. And that's why practices like, that's why I'm very big into things like Tai Chi and yoga and bioenergetics and things like that, things that bring you back to that state of a fearless ego like a child.
Yeah, man, it's beautiful. Well, and you are one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because you're a person that's out there fearlessly sharing your perspective in an open-minded form. Of course, dude, I'm sure you are not right on everything, and of course you know that. There's things that are in your blind spot that, just like mine, everyone has blind spots. So it's like sharing our perspectives by acknowledging I got blind spots. I mean, hell if I know. We're 1 out of 7.5 billion people on a gigantic planet. How the hell do we know what's going on all together? But we're doing the best we can, and as we join together, and what your site is bringing together a community of people. I mean, you see it on your Facebook page, you see it on your YouTube channel through the events that you're covering. This is a connection of community. You're sharing we're all bringing a collective perspective in many ways, and if we can keep open-mindedness to it, I mean, in many ways, everything is true. Everything is true on some level. I mean, especially if you think it. Islam is the only true religion. That can be true for some people. Let's embrace it. And so I just want to say I really appreciate what you're doing. What do you got going on in the next couple of months that you're really excited about? I know you have so many projects in terms of your collaborations with this secret space program and getting this information out there. But what else you got coming up? Like, tell the people What up, my friend?
Yeah, man. So I mentioned earlier, I just got back from Gaia. So I was there in Colorado over the weekend. I filmed an episode of Beyond Belief for George Norrie's show. That'll be coming out. I don't know exactly when, but it'll be coming out. And I do also have the interview that I did with William Tompkins on the way as well. So for those who don't know who William Tompkins is, he was a 94-year-old whistleblower of the secret space program. Amazing story. He recently passed away on actually the day of the eclipse, symbolically enough. And I was lucky enough to have what I believe to be the last interview of his, which happened about a month before his death. So I'm working on getting that edited and put out as soon as possible, hopefully within the next week or so, put out some clips of it. And then after that, I'm planning on just working on projects right now. I'm doing a webinar later this month for the guys at Portal to Ascension, and it's called The Science of Ascension. So that'll be fun. I'll talk about a bunch of real sciencey stuff, get into some Dewey B. Larson physics, and some of those unified field physics to help rewrite the textbooks with. And
Beautiful.
that's on September 30th. Dan Winter is also going to be on that. I'm super stoked. So
Nice.
That's amazing. And then I'm working on my own personal webinars too. So I want to do, my own online conference / kind of webinars, maybe monthly or bi-monthly. The first one I'm working on is health oriented. So it's like a holistic health webinar. Then I'll, venture out into some other ones, working on getting some content up on the website so people can download ebooks and videos and whatnot too, to help them, relearn, educate, share my experiences and stuff. And then non-business related, I guess my life is kind of my business related, but I'm going on an ayahuasca journey in a few weeks here. So I'll be going to do the ayahuasca brew.
Beautiful. I heard that you were doing that. I saw that in one of your most recent videos. And
I don't know if I want to. I don't know how much of it I'm going to record. Right. Might not record any of it. I might record all of it. So that's kind of a game time decision there. We'll see. But I'm very excited to do that. So
yeah, the power of plant medicine is something that it might be, in my opinion, it might be one of the best tools out there for the healing of this world. I mean, I think that it has the ability to literally smash you to pieces and realign you back into a more healthy state.
What have you dabbled in?
Psilocybin has been my plant of choice, and I've had the most incredible experiences that are undeniable. I can never deny the experiences that I've had in the psychedelic state, and I can never deny the personal progress that I've been able to accomplish with the help of these tools, and they're beautiful. And I'm at lordsofconsciousness.com. We are extreme advocates for the ending of the prohibition of all these plant medicines that have been, taken away from us, throwing people in jail over, and that goes from cannabis to LSD to
no
MDMA.
Victim, no crime, man. No victim, no crime.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
But if you don't harm anybody else or their property, no victim, no crime. And yeah, psilocybin is good stuff. I've done that one a handful of times. I've never dabbled into LSD or DMT. The farthest I've ever gone is medicinal mushrooms. I don't really have a drive to try LSD or DMT. That's just me personally. I want to try to experience enlightened, expanded states of consciousness relatively, myself. Try to do it endogenously, meditation and being healthy and whatnot. But ayahuasca is I just feel drawn to that plant for some reason. I think I do want to try that one. And I've heard it's a little, I don't want to say darker, but it's a little more polarity inducing than mushrooms are. Mushrooms are very light. They're very happy. Most of the time, you can go on a odd bad trip, but most of the time they're very fun. I hear ayahuasca brings a lot more of your shadow self out to the forefront. So let's work with it,
Yeah, and there's many roads to Rome, and there's many tools to get the job done. I mean, maybe some people, their journey calls for one trip in their lifetime, and that's enough. David Icke was like that. He did one ayahuasca trip, touched the hand of God, and was like, okay, I'm good. maybe there's
Yeah.
some people that require maybe many journeys, and maybe some people really don't require any in their lifetime. I don't think the psychedelics are for everyone. I think it's something that you feel called to, then see what it is, and when you feel guided to do it again, great. But if there's no pressure here, there's no competition. You're not like better because you've done it more than another person, and it's not the be all end all. Like, this isn't about the mushrooms. It's about finding who you are, your inner peace, finding, healing the wounds that you may have, and so on and so forth, and really becoming who we're meant to be. So whatever tool you got to use to get there, hell yeah. So
Totally.
Jordan, thank you so much for coming on, man. You're someone that I really respect, and any way that I can help you in what you're doing, I'm always here. Like probably the theme of our conversation is it takes a village, and I really appreciate you coming on, my friend.
Yeah, this was really fun, man. I really enjoyed the conversation on this one. If you want to do it again, just let me know.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you.
No problem. Take care.